All right, welcome to the Printing B altcoin weekly review. This is not financial advice, it's just what I'm seeing and sharing it. So take it with a pinch of salt, do your own research, and make your own decisions. Okay, let's get into it. So this is Bitcoin dominance, and so you look at the monthly chart, and I think this closes red this month. It's quite obvious. And when it closes red, normally you are going to get a bit of a bounce back. So, somewhere around here, but just be mindful, it could go all the way up to the 9-day moving average, which is sitting around 60.9. So between here, so I mean, we could draw a kind of let's draw interest area here. So you could get us coming in between here, okay? And I think it could come even all the way up to here, up to 60.4. So that's something to be note. Let's move to the weekly. The weekly will close red. The only thing that obviously it's going to cause that bounce is the divergences you've been creating on the daily chart, right? Okay, so you've got, a divergence here and a divergence there, and normally that should lead you to a kind of a bounce. So, the bounce, yeah, exactly comes into the 50 at the very least. So that would be like what's the percentage? Let's say we fall to somewhere here, or even if we come into our box, let's say from here to there, that's about 65%. So that's going to be a bit of a downer on the altcoin. So you can expect the altcoins to have a bit of a shaky couple of days coming. But they will do well probably tonight. Tonight they probably bounce up because this needs to kind of do a zip down, especially on the weekly chart, and finish its zip to the downside. All right. So that will give them a bit of breathing room to do what they need to do. But subsequently, you're going to get a bit of a bounce like you had here. So you're going to get a bit of a bounce to the upside. So that will slow them down. Um, let's move on. And with Bitcoin, obviously, Bitcoin, if you look at Bitcoin, there is a bounce on Bitcoin on 4 hours incoming. There is definitely a bounce incoming. You've got uh, a number of divergences here, there, and there, right? So you would expect a bounce at the very least to about 110, 111,000. But there's a lot of liquidity upside. So there's a lot of liquidity upside. If I bring the chart with the liquidity, and yeah, and then show you where the liquidity is. So you can see that we got liquidity here, all the way here. That's all liquidity, which is stacked up, right? And you've also got liquidity, which is just being built up here. Okay, liquidity is being built up here as well. So, you know, most likely they go for this easy liquidity first before they come for this one, which is sitting down here. So, you know, if it bounces up and dominance falls, then the altcoins will pump and they will likely go up. Okay, so that's something to note. Now let's go and start our review of some of the altcoins. Okay, so let's look at our first one, which will be Celestia. So you've got TIA on the let's look at it on the daily chart. Okay, so it's TIA has been coiling up, following this trend line. It kind of touches it, but it's touched it so many times that it's like knocking on a door several times. You might end up breaking. And so, I think it breaks and comes back to test the bottom part of it here. So if that happens, then you would get the USDT pair also going down. Okay, so the best case scenario you would get is a small bounce up, maybe to about here, maybe slightly here, which will move the USDT pair slightly up before the dump. But it's definitely going to come back down to base. Let's look at the USDT pair. So the USDT pair, and let's look at it on this one here. Okay, so I've highlighted some liquidity areas of liquidity which are sitting up there. Now, there is a bit of liquidity sitting at the bottom side on I think it's the daily chart. Or is it the daily? Yeah, daily chart. So you can see here, we've got liquidity sitting from here to here, and market makers don't like leaving liquidity on the table. So you can expect that they will take this liquidity and probably maybe zip it slightly lower to maybe 120, between 120 and 28, somewhere there. Now, if it gets really bad, you can expect that, we'll get to about 107, 108. So that's the scenario on Celestia. You may get a small bounce, which may take you back to maybe 180. If, when of course Bitcoin goes up and dominance falls slightly into as the night progresses. But I wouldn't expect it to, just continue going up and up and up. The environment is not ready yet, so I would expect a lot of resistance here on Celestia. If you bring it on the weekly chart, it's unlikely you're going to reverse this whole candle tonight. Very unlikely, which means you're going to go lower at the very least before. Okay, if you bring it on a monthly chart, the month is going to close like this, which is we've come for some of the liquidity sitting on this candle, and chances are you go slightly lower, slightly lower. So, somewhere around 109, 108, between here and here, you get price fall to, and then you can get your proper bounce to the upside. So that's Celestia. Let's move on to ETH. So ETH BTC. So if you look at ETH BTC on the monthly chart, it looks really positive. But you can expect that sometimes when you close like this, you get a retest. Okay. So ETH BTC could end up maybe falling to about here. So it could fall to about somewhere there before you continue your journey to the upside on ETH BTC. The weekly will probably end up, maybe bringing us all the way to test the wick here, which is about right. But there is liquidity here. There's liquidity here. Market makers don't like liquidity being left. Liquidity here. And there's a tiny bit of liquidity here. So, and we've done step one, step two, step three. So I wouldn't be surprised if we close like this. That's a hanging man. And that could bring you even all the way back down to test some of the liquidity here. And maybe just take this one here. So I think if we put an interest box here, take some of the liquidity here, and that will be ETH, I think. So which means the USDT pair will also fall a little bit. So if we go back to here, now the week is closing. If it closes like this, you go hanging man. So yeah, maybe we'll go slightly back up into it and then continue the journey to the downside. I think you see ETH around 2000. At the very least, you see ETH around 2950 or 2940. This 50 EMA and SMA will be tested most likely. So again, we could put our interest box, under here because that's where the liquidity is sitting really that day after. So we could put it somewhere here. And if it gets really bad, we can delete that. If it gets really bad, then you can expect that they will take the liquidity at the bottom here as well. But I think on balance, it stops. Worst case scenario, it stops around 2.5 would be what I would say, 2.5, and then we continue the journey to the upside. So that's ETH. Let's move on to the next pair, which is Solana. So Solana BTC again is looking really positive, as you can see, positive on their weekly chart. It's looking really good. So you can expect that when the week closes, you can expect a retrace. Now, a retrace probably back into the wick because Solana looks quite positive. So I would say Solana comes back to test 50% of this and continues the journey to the upside. This is a much, much stronger looking chart. On the daily chart, you can see here we've started our kind of fall on the daily chart, and that's because you just literally had a golden cross and you've gone up slightly, so you're going to pull back. So they will take the liquidity sitting here. This is the closest liquidity they've got sitting between here and here. So they will take it all the way up to here, and then you could potentially then continue the journey to the upside. So let's look at it on the USDT pair and see what it looks like. So here on the weekly chart, We will likely close like this. I don't expect us to continue buzzing up. Although we could today slightly push up a bit because of the incoming move on Bitcoin bouncing up and also dominance cooling off slightly first. So you could end up with a situation where this goes up slightly first, but you would expect it to cool off to about, I would say Solana. I mean, yeah, somewhere around here, 176, 175 is possible. Before you continue the journey to the upside. So, we could put a stick right there and say, okay, that's the line in the sand. And then they've taken the liquidity which was here. They've taken most of the liquidity here. So unless they want to bring it back down here and take the liquidity which is sitting at the bottom here, which I don't see it at the moment on this particular chart. I think we've only done step one and a step two. So there's more. I think Solana will likely go up and go and hit this point here. It will go and hit this point here. So there's a lot of liquidity also all around here. So, they can go for that. So Solana looks much stronger. It's a much stronger chart. But if it closes red, you get a pullback on it. A pullback to, maximum here before you continue the journey to the upside. So let's move on and look at Aave. So Aave BTC again, quite a nice pump here. And again, this liquidity, they've taken some of it. Is that all that they want? They could come back and take most of it. So, I would move this to this point here because they could take more of this liquidity here before you actually go up. The market makers don't like leaving liquidity on the table. So like for example, this one here, you can see they came back and took all of it, right? Before we went up again. So you can bet they will come back and take all of this liquidity at some point before we go up properly. So let's move on to the USD pair and see. This week, I think you'll close red. And if you close red, chances are you're going to come down and test the 50-day moving average, which is sitting around here. So, there will be a bit of a pullback. If it gets worse, then, the 200 will be a double bottom type scenario on Aave. Let's move on to the next pair, which is, I think that's it. But let's move on to my altcoins here. Render. So Render also, um, we will close red this week, which means chances are you will go slightly lower. So, we could do a triple bottom on Render around the 278. We could do a triple bottom, easily do a triple bottom. I'd expect this at the very least to come into this point here at the very least. So this will be our gap. Okay. And we could go slightly lower as well, just slightly lower, just to throw everyone off the scent before we actually then go up. If you draw a trend line from here and you connect it to here like that, even if we cut across, let's forget these wicks and cut across the base here, and then you do a trend. So then you would be looking at, where does it fall? Maybe about 30% drop. Yeah. So somewhere around the 214, 215, we can get there in this move to the downside. So that's render. And then let's move up Pepe. Hold on. Let's look at we've done Aave, Solana, Say. Let's look at Say. So say on the weekly chart here, we're going to close red as well. And there is a lot of liquidity sitting here. So, it's a given that say will come back to base, around the 17.5, 17, 18. That's where the liquidity is sitting at the moment. So that's where the most likely price will go to first. So the liquidity is sitting there, and that's where they will go for. So that's say quite a quick one. Let's move on to OP Optimism, one of our coins. So OP has also been hugging this line and now it's broken it and it will break it. Looks like tonight we'll be breaking it. So I think we can expect it to come back to base, you know, 0.48, maybe slightly lower, 40. So, let's put one of our favorite lines there, 40. Somewhere there. I think that's where price will fall to. We'll go slightly lower. Maybe, yeah, slightly lower. We'll go slightly lower and then that will be the end of it. Something like that. Yeah. So let's move on to then CRB, one of our coins. So CRB, yeah, so CRB, all they want is this liquidity here. So I mean, I think you can expect that, we'll come back to at the very least here. We'll come back to here. The only thing you should be mindful about if we close like this, you always get a bounce back. Yeah, there's always going to be a switch back. So just be mindful. That will happen most likely before you come down. Just like you had this, for example, or even this one, you went up first before, you know, you went up and then we kind of came down, went up. So, you can expect some form of a bounce back on this once we go down slightly low. If we go down, we come back, it will be like a divergence here. So that's CRV. Let's move on to injective. So injective as well is also very similar picture as well. I think, initial point of call will be here, and then if no support, we'll be back to base. So those are the kind of interest areas for me on injective. And then let's look at Zeus. Zeus has been doing well as well. So Zeus is looking really good. It's looking very good on the weekly chart. I think you're going to close green and most likely you're going to go up slightly higher. So it could go all the way up to 19. So Zeus is looking really, really good. But again, as I would say, when there is liquidity like this created, you can expect Zeus to be back here. You can expect Zeus to be back somewhere there before it continues the journey to the upside, but it's looking good. IMIX, last one. So IMIX is looking very good as well. Let me see IMIX. So IMIX, it's a similar story. I think, we've got a double bottom already on this one. So, I think you might end up getting a triple bottom on this one. We could easily get a triple bottom here um, before we continue the journey to the upside. So, maybe it comes all the way back here to 333635. But it's not a huge move to the downside, from here to there. If you buy spot, that's the best thing to do is to buy spot and buy, when it gets here, you buy 40, you buy double bottom slightly lower, 33, 32, 34, you buy. So that's I mix a little bit more on the downside. I mean, he's creating I like what he's doing. He's created a weekly divergence here, and we've gone higher. So the divergence has done its job from that perspective. It's done its job, and so we can come a bit more down. So yeah, back to this base here. Yeah, 4.7 initially, but there's liquidity sitting here. Market makers don't like leaving liquidity on the table, so it's very likely minimum you get your 4.5. And then I'm sure there's liquidity also sitting between here and here. So, you know, all that, that's the first phase will be here, and then you have another phase here. So, yeah, you can expect that it will fall into somewhere here before we go up. Um, and I think that's all I've got really for altcoins. Let me look at Link briefly. So Link has done a good run up, but it has got a lot of liquidity sitting all the way down here, from here all the way down here. So, you know, you can expect that Link will give it back. It will give all the liquidity back up to this point here, which is around 17.42. So that's link. They will not leave this liquidity on the table and continue going up. So the weekly will close probably red, triple red. So with a hanging man or indecision candle there. So yeah, you can expect that all this liquidity will go, all of it. They will take all of it. So all the way up to here is on the table for the taking before you get any move to the upside. I think that's enough. I'll leave it there in terms of altcoins. So in summary, you know, tonight we may get some bounces tonight. Tonight we may get some bounces. But I think looking at the whole market in terms of the stock market, if that is going to do some pullback into next week, then, maybe we might get small bounce in the early trading hours of Sunday into Monday morning, which means crypto will bounce up slightly. And then maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you have your dump. And then towards the end of the week, maybe you have another recovery run. So that's what I see at the moment. I wish you all the best and take good care of yourself and trade safe and God bless.